The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. when Jake Hollister first noticed something wrong. Mile marker 237 appeared in his headlights, the reflective numbers glinting like cat eyes in the dark. He'd driven this stretch of Highway 20 through the Cascades 100 times, knew every curve and grade by heart. 15 minutes later, hauling 40,000 pounds of lumber toward Seattle, he passed mile marker 237 again. Jake rubbed his eyes, blamed exhaustion. 300 miles still to go, and the mountain roads had a way of playing tricks on tired minds. But when he checked his odometer, the numbers confirmed he'd traveled 12 miles since the first sighting. The mathematics didn't work. He turned up the radio to keep himself alert, some late-night talk show discussing disappearances in the Pacific Northwest. At 12:17 a.m., mile marker 237 appeared again. This time Jake slowed, staring at the marker as it slid past his window. The Douglas firs surrounding the road stood skeletal and bare, branches reaching toward the sky like desperate fingers. That wasn't right. Just minutes ago they'd been full and green, thick with summer foliage. His pulse quickened as he pressed the accelerator, the engine growling as the 18-wheeler picked up speed. The radio crackled. Static washed over the talk show host's voice, then cleared into something else entirely. Jake, if you're hearing this, do not stop at mile marker 237. I know you'll want to. I know you'll think you need to understand. But whatever you do. The voice was his own. Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. The transmission cut to static, then back to the talk show as if nothing had happened. His mind raced through rational explanations. Hallucination, carbon monoxide leak, some kind of stroke. But the road ahead remained solid and real, the weight of his cargo steady behind him. At 12:32 a.m., mile marker 237 appeared once more. This time, snow covered the trees in thick white blankets, heavy enough to bow their branches. Impossibly, flakes began hitting his windshield despite the clear night sky. Jake's throat went dry as he fumbled for his phone, nearly dropping it as he tried to unlock the screen. No signal. Of course there wasn't. These mountain passes were notorious dead zones. He was alone with whatever was happening, with his own voice echoing warnings from an impossible future. The snow fell harder now, though his rearview mirrors showed only clear darkness behind him. It was as if reality itself had fractured, showing him different seasons simultaneously. He thought of his daughter Emily, probably asleep in Spokane, waiting for him to call tomorrow morning like always. Would he make that call? The question sent ice through his veins colder than the phantom snow. Mile marker 237 materialized again at 12:47 a.m., right on schedule. The trees were burning. Orange flames consumed the forest on both sides of the highway, intense enough that Jake could feel heat through the closed windows. Smoke should have been choking the road, but the air remained clear, the fire existing in its own pocket of reality. He watched a massive pine collapse in slow motion, embers spiraling upward into a sky that couldn't decide if it was night or day. The radio shrieked to life. Listening to me? You've passed it 4 times now. I've been here for hours, Jake. Hours. It doesn't matter how fast you drive or which direction you go. The marker keeps coming back. But if you stop, if you get out of the truck. More static. Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. Hours? He'd been trapped for less than 60 minutes. How long had his future self been caught in this loop? How long would he be trapped? He glanced at the fuel gauge. 3/4 full. Enough for maybe 400 miles under normal circumstances, but normal had abandoned him the moment he'd first passed that marker. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and somewhere in that infinity waited mile marker 237 again, patient as a predator. Time became meaningless. Jake watched the clock. 1:02 a.m., 1:17 a.m., 1:32 a.m., each 15-minute interval bringing him back to that same cursed marker. The forest cycled through its impossible seasons. Bare branches, snow-laden boughs, consuming fire, then back to bare branches again. He tried everything, closing his eyes as he passed it, watching his odometer obsessively, even attempting to calculate his speed to break the pattern. Nothing worked. The radio broadcast from his future self grew more desperate. Sometimes he heard himself screaming, sometimes weeping, once laughing with an edge of madness that made his skin crawl. In one transmission, his future voice calmly explained that he'd counted 63 passages of mile marker 237 before stopping to use a rest area that wasn't there. Don't trust the facilities, Jake. Don't trust anything that offers escape. At 2:47 a.m., something new appeared. A figure stood beside mile marker 237. Jake slammed on the brakes, the truck's air brakes hissing as 40,000 pounds of momentum fought against him. The rig shuddered to a stop 50 yards past the marker. In his side mirror, he could see the figure clearly now, a man in a trucker's jacket waving frantically, illuminated by the burning forest that shouldn't exist. The man was him. Not future him or past him, but current him, standing beside the road while simultaneously sitting in the driver's seat. The figure's mouth moved, shouting something Jake couldn't hear through the closed windows. Every instinct screamed at him to stay inside, to drive on, but drive to where? Another 15 minutes of false progress? Another impossible loop? His hand reached for the door handle. No. The radio exploded with sound. Jake, no. I can see you. I can see you reaching for the door. I did the same thing. I thought I could help myself, thought if I could just make contact with one of the other versions, we could break the loop together. Jake froze. What happened? He whispered to the empty cab. The radio answered as if it had heard him. There's only one of us, Jake. Only ever was. But the marker, it splits the moment. Every time we pass it, we fragment a little more. Every time we stop, we lose a piece. Don't let it take you apart. Jake sat paralyzed, watching his own reflection pound on the marker, mouth open in a silent scream. The burning trees cast dancing shadows across the doppelganger's face, making it seem inhuman despite wearing his exact features. How many versions of himself were trapped in these 15-minute cycles? How many were watching him right now from their own fractured moments? The fuel gauge had dropped to half. He'd burned through a quarter tank somehow, though his odometer insisted he'd only traveled 40 miles. The numbers lied. Everything lied except that damned marker and his own voice bleeding through from futures he was desperate to avoid. At 3:17 a.m., mile marker 237 appeared again. This time, 3 figures stood beside it, all him, all gesturing frantically. The trees behind them showed all seasons at once, a nightmare kaleidoscope of bare branches wrapped in snow, bursting with green needles and consumed by flame. Jake made a decision. Instead of accelerating past the marker, he stopped directly beside it. The radio went haywire, a dozen versions of his own voice screaming contradictory warnings. Drive. Don't move. Close your eyes. Get out. The cacophony was deafening, maddening. He switched off the radio and in the sudden silence heard something else. The soft tick of the cooling engine, his own ragged breathing, and underneath it all, a sound like tearing fabric. The other Jakes had vanished. He was alone with mile marker 237. Jake climbed down from the cab, his boots crunching on asphalt that felt too solid for something caught in a temporal loop. Up close, the marker looked ordinary, just reflective paint on metal. But when he reached out to touch it, his hand passed through the numbers like smoke. Behind him, his truck's headlights illuminated the road ahead. Mile marker 238 stood 70 yards away. You had to stop moving, Jake said to himself, understanding flooding through him. The loop feeds on momentum. On the refusal to accept what's happening. He walked back to his truck, climbed in and drove forward. At 3:32 a.m., he passed mile marker 238. At 3:47 a.m., mile marker 239. The forest remained a consistent summer green, beautiful and real under the starlight. The radio crackled once more, his own voice quiet now, almost peaceful. You made it. Remember this, Jake. Sometimes the only way out is to stop running. By dawn, Jake was in Seattle unloading his cargo. He never drove Highway 20 through the Cascades again. But sometimes, late at night, he wonders about the versions of himself still trapped in those 15-minute cycles. The ones who kept driving, who refused to stop, who are still passing mile marker 237 in an endless, fragmenting loop. The dashboard clock in his new rig reads 11:47 p.m. He pulls over and waits for midnight before continuing on.